Well, hello there, my friends. If you've been anything like me this past week, which I'm sure that you have probably been quite mentally overwhelmed. And as I'm getting ready to make this forecast for the upcoming week, I'm trying to recollect myself with all of the events of the past week, let alone the past three or four. And I'm just like, wow. So welcome to welcome to your forecast for the week of July 28, 2024. This is ABSOLEM, the art of astrology and demon slaying. My name is Oak. I run Oak Astrology School. I'm a ritualist, holistic chef, and also a friend that's just trying to make it just like all of you. This week I'm titling, Dear God, please send me a sign. And I'm so serious. But, this is a new moon week. We're going to get into all of that. This is actually a really helpful message that I'm going to share with you guys. And this message, just like the last 2 weeks, is really going to allow you to put things together that you may not have put together. And so, by the way, if you love this show, if it has helped you week to week, if you like these messages, please feel free to leave a 5-star review. These things help other people find these messages. I know these messages are very important for some, for many. And yeah, just as a recap, last week I titled the week A Huge Foreshadowing. And as of today, July 28, this is the degree the sun is at. It is actually where Mars will station retrograde at the end of the year, thoroughly creating an immense amount of drama. So the huge foreshadowing is kind of like there's a lot happening right now that is suggesting a huge foreshadowing. And what happened in the last 24 to 48 hours? There was a huge blackout at the Paris Olympics. There was also an attack on the transit system, I believe, like the day of the Olympics or the day before. So there is actually some type of activity. There's a statement that's being made, right? And then additionally, other statements from the past week. The standing ovation of Netanyahu at Congress was quite a spectacle. One of the things that is really important, my friends, is that Jupiter in Gemini is a lot about divisiveness of information. Whether you think of it as duality, but I also think that with AI and the way that information is shared, like something that I saw is that, they were just filling in chairs to make it look as though Congress was packed, but that wasn't necessarily all of the members of Congress, if that makes sense. So it's like we have to be really cautious how we receive information. And additionally, Kamala is now a Democratic candidate for the presidency. And that is interesting. I will say that there's a statement that was released about 2 days ago where she is still saying, I am standing with Israel, or I'm standing for Israel's right to protect itself. So we have to be really discerning, right? Like one of the things that the United States is really good at, and it also shows in the United States chart, is this idea of like switch and bait. And so there's the intensity that's happening right now with Trump and Project 2025. And then I think the public mind is actually quite easy to just divert attention. We're like, okay, well, here's something that's like a little bit better, right? This idea of switch and bait, it's something that we see all the time, right? Especially with Trump's assassination attempt, like just a few days prior was when those Epstein court files were released, and Trump was actually one of the names that was very prominent on that list. And also, like, there is an accusation of him having a sex slave actually in 1994. So it's actually the Saturn return of that period for Trump. So, by the way, that's just an interesting little detail there. But, the assassination attempt totally took the spotlight, right, over something actually very, very severe, which is this, sexual abuse, sexual trafficking case against Trump. So the divisiveness, it is very important that, that's one of the things that I just really see when it comes to Jupiter in Gemini, and that's going to be going on until May, June of 2025. So before we do the new moon forecast, I want to just kind of talk about the week itself, because it is a week where things are starting to slow down a lot, right? Like the entire week of July 28th, from Sunday to Sunday, we are building towards a new moon, which usually means, slow down. It's a lot more quiet. There are two details about this week that I think are relatively important. One, the moon in Gemini, and two, Venus square to Uranus. So the moon is in Gemini from Monday afternoon until late Wednesday evening. And that is a time that will just probably be a little bit busier, right? Like we're moving towards the new moon, so it is a quieter time. But I think that with the moon in Gemini meeting Mars and Jupiter at some point, like this is where more communications are going to be had, where we're still tying things up. We're still quite busy. Like there's just busybody energy. As Mercury is getting ready to go retrograde, and it was lightly squaring Mars last week, that was what created a lot of the mental overwhelm. And it seemed like, that can feel like an onslaught of information, an onslaught of messages, an onslaught of headlines to be aware of, or just details that you're trying to maintain, right? Like it can be a lot of things to do on your to-do list, basically. So I definitely felt a lot of that, and I felt very much like I really needed to bring a lot of conscious energy into just like how I was managing my time, managing like my brain, basically. So yeah, just there's that period from Monday to Wednesday where that is going to be, reactivated a little bit more. Venus square to Uranus, that happens on Friday, but it's definitely building on Thursday. You'll feel it on Saturday. And this is pretty much where there can be a change of perspective. It will likely come through seeing someone that you hadn't planned on seeing. It could be someone new. It could just be like a random person being like, oh my God, I haven't talked to you in so long. Like, let's have lunch. Oh my God, I was supposed to be doing this thing, but fuck it, let's do this. Like it is that energy of like, we're gonna shift our plans and it's all gonna happen very spontaneously. So this is good. I think that this Venus square to Uranus actually just, the way that I think of Uranus, especially these days, this year, is like it gives us more information to build a better perspective that we may not have had previously. And this Venus square Uranus actually ties in very much with this new moon, which I'm actually really excited to get to. So this new moon happens, and I'm going to throw out a few numbers, but this is going to make sense if you're really able to catch what I'm saying. So this new moon happens on Sunday, August 4 at 4:14 a.m. Pacific, 7:14 a.m. EST. And it is at 12 degrees Leo. It is sextile to Jupiter. And this new moon, actually, I was looking at it, and at a glance, it just kind of seems like a pretty neutral new moon. It's not having like really intense squares or anything like that, or hard aspects. But when you actually look at the degrees, like there's something that is very much like pulling us back to the summer of 2023. Because when you look at Venus in this new moon chart, Venus is at 29 degrees of Leo, right? And there was this infamous, I'm going to share a story with you guys. There was this infamous Venus retrograde that happened last year. And it was basically from like July 23 to September 4. But it was just all summer pretty much. And I remember giving love readings because I knew that it was going to be all about love. I was booked from the start of the summer to the tail end of the summer, and even after, just like so many people wanting these love readings. And it was generally a lot about just like unrequited love, love that hurts, love that is so painful because you're growing, and like that type of love, the type of love that is stretching the capacity of your heart. And when you grow, in your heart space, then you have more capacity to see things, right? But you also have like more capacity for yourself and your needs and your wants and your self-respect. And a lot of the readings were really just about this energy of self-respect, which is very similar to a new moon in Leo. But my friends, when Venus stationed direct last year on September 4, when Venus stationed direct, it was at 12 degrees of Leo. So Venus, at this new moon on Sunday, August 4, Venus is literally at the degree that she stationed retrograde at last year. And this new moon actually is at the degree that Venus stationed direct last year as well. This is just something that is a very specific nod to your self-respect, a nod to this deepening of love. So when I call this week or this new moon, dear God, please send me a sign. There's so many layers to why I describe it that way, because at the same time of this new moon, Mercury is getting ready to station retrograde. It will thoroughly be retrograde until August 28th. So the entire month of August. And pretty much, like a new moon signifies the month. So even within this new moon, it is saying the sign is going to come at some point. Like, sometimes when we are asking in this type of way, like, dear God, please give me a sign, there's usually a little bit of desperation. There's a little bit of like, imminently, I need to know something. I feel that there's something pulling at my heart that I need to know this answer now. Please help me. And God is like, bitch, Mercury's retrograde. And also, listen, like, we're literally looking out at the world right now, and we're just seeing the fucking idiocy. Is that a word? Like, we're just seeing like the most corny ways that we are being completely disrespected. There's so much disrespect that we are experiencing as these political figures, and our political options are just genuinely disrespectful. So disrespectful to humanity, so disrespectful to what it means to live in a dignified way, to live in a humane way. And this is kind of the thing, like, when we're asking for the answer, oftentimes the answer comes from within. I am taking all of the messages that I sat with many people last summer giving love readings, and it was always about self-respect, and it was never about the other person. It was always about self-respect, and it will never be about these candidates. And yes, I understand there is, quote unquote, a lesser of two evils, but like, the fuck, like, is that good enough? The thing is like, Pluto in Aquarius is such an amazing expression of the power that we have as individuals collectively. How we can, our individual effort can be this drop of a powerful ocean, right? But the way that it's being used right now, I'm just like, really? 160,000 white women go on a call dubbed Karens for Kamala. The biggest Zoom call in history. I'm like, this is not a good use of that energy, y'all. Like, I appreciate the urgency, but in some ways I'm like, we have to get our priorities straight. And a new moon in Leo will thoroughly get your heart in the right place. A new moon in Leo will thoroughly get your priorities straight, because if your priorities are set around what is respectful to a life, what is respectful to your life, this is a month where we are certainly organizing ourselves around that. And yes, it's not happening on the new moon because Mercury's retrograde, but it is pulling us back. It is drawing us back to those lessons that we learned from July and August and September of 2023. And I know that not all of us are so quick to remember things, but even I was just like the level of growth that I experienced in that period, because I was really deep in heartbreak. Like so many of us were in heartbreak over various things at that time. That is the nature of Venus retrograde. And because it is being pinged with this new moon, it is a true reminder that, we are able to really remember our steps forward when we really look back at some of those really deep things that had us stop in our tracks. There was a moment in 2023, that summer, where people were stopped in their tracks, because heartbreak is something that will really do it to you. And I know that you understand this. So this is such a, there's something that's actually quite meaningful and tender about this new moon. And it requires for you to go back into your Rolodex of memories, and just to call those things back, call those things forward. Because I think that when we really sit in self-respect, that is the only way that we're able to get out of an abusive relationship. That when we have these here are your options, here is immediate poison, and here is a poison that will still kill you, but it's just a different brand, right? It's a little bit better. It's a less generic brand of poison, right? But your cousins and your family in Gaza are still gonna die. Either choice that you make. That's the kind of energy. Like when you have a greater level of self-respect, when that self-respect is fully integrated into your actions and into the way you see things, then you will not take narcissistic abuse. When we're dealing with something like a narcissistic abusive relationship, and you know that you're making complete sense, but the other side is just completely committed to their own agenda, which is protecting their insecurities, right? You cannot win. One of the things that I have been thinking about when it comes to all of the protesting. So all of this protesting that's been happening globally, right? It's almost like it's falling upon ears that can't even perceive the same language. So the self-respect needs to be more than needing to convince someone else. We need to convince ourselves. We have to assume that when we're in an abusive relationship, that the other party is not going to ever change. And I think that there's a lesson that is being shown to us right now with the standing ovation at Congress, looking out and seeing how we're using our energy of urgency. I think that there is the need to come back into a deeper level of self-respect, right? Because ultimately it is uprising that this is leading towards. And whether you see it now or you see it later, but we're actually looking right now, because remember, the past few weeks have been a foreshadowing. So are we looking at that standing ovation in Congress, and are we accepting that, right? 2 days later, or, even though Kamala wasn't there, she reiterated, I stand for the defense of Israel, for Israel's right to defend itself. So there's not much of a difference in my eyes. This is my opinion, but I think that this is definitely informed by a lot of the astrology. So as this month is happening, this new moon month, and Mercury's retrograde, and Jupiter is square to Saturn next week. So this is kind of why just the blatant, the ability to see things for what they are, we're getting to that point. And it is really for you to take all the information that you're seeing and make a decision. That is the idea of fixed signs. We have a new moon in the middle of a fixed sign, and it is about making a decision that is genuinely meaningful for you on an integrative and an integral level. This is not really as widely covered in the news, but we also just cannot deny that there is a massive, massive uprising happening in Bangladesh. So the energy of this period of time, the energy of Pluto in Aquarius is alive and present. It is not just Western media. It is not just in the Western world. It is all over the world where there is like this immense collective dissatisfaction and the potential of people and the likelihood and the promise that there will be uprising is happening. That's why I'm really asking y'all to think about this idea of how our attention keeps getting diverted to something that is still pretty shitty, pretty like non-meaningful, pretty like empty actually. When we are using our hearts as a guide, we will not come to anything that is empty. We will never be led to something that is fake, that is just like a promise that is full of air. So I really think that's the value of this month, is to deepen in this space. When we're doing our processing from this space, we can have our eyes closed, we can have our hands tied behind our back, we don't even really need to be listening fully. We know if something is true. So this is where we have to, look beyond the messaging, and we'll have the capacity to look beyond the messaging during this month. So yeah, my friends, this is your message. I think this is really what I wanted to say. There's a lot to think about. And yeah, thank you for listening. Dear God, please give me a message. That message comes from within, my friend. A little bit about me. Wow. I have been so busy. It is like I am overwhelmed. This reminds me of 2020 because I actually am revising my material for the full natal astrology course. So if you have bought the full natal astrology course, which is super amazing, it's actually getting revamped. So in the next few months, it is just going to be getting better and better. And so yeah, like there's just certain modules that I am like revamping, adding different examples and things like that. So feel free to check that out. Once I fully revamp, the price is going to change, but it is definitely on super sale right now. So yeah, check that out on my website, okastrologyschool.com. I am loving the herbal formulas that I have made in the past year. They are just, the line keeps getting better and better. And yeah, if you're interested, please check out my herbal line, Ultimate Power Ojas. It is on my consulting page, okastrology.com. And bless y'all. I'll see you next time.